Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries Live with Tanya E. I'm glad I get the chance to see you and hoping that you listen to this morning's episode. Because if you have, then you know that we're having a conversation about a framework that I typically teach here and show. And I want to welcome those of you that are joining us live here on LinkedIn. Give me a few moments to make certain that you guys can see me okay. And as we walk through this journey, getting greater insight and a little more input, I want to start sharing, as I stated earlier today, some of the pieces that I typically teach Share and Show to walk you through some parts of your journey. And the HAD framework that I discussed this morning gives us a little bit of understanding about how to get there. Because I don't know if a lot of you are aware that over 70% of the people that go through a major life crisis never realize that there are tools and things that you have already learned. Something in your past prepared you for this present. Now, there are lots of times, and I know for me, having walked through a lot of reset moments in my life, I thought that going through this situation, I was just thrown into it, not prepared, no great insight, but you already possess at the core of your being some things that will help you get through this journey. And the HAD framework that I talked about gives you an idea about that. Because imagine you've gone through situations before where you have come out on the other side. And yes, I get it. When you're walking through the middle of a storm, that it doesn't feel like it's something that you have already experienced because this is a new emotional warfare. But there's a skill set that you have that you may be applying in a different area. What I like to often share with my clients is how to draw your professional perspective and your personal perspective and start mirroring some elements of those things. Because if you don't really get clarity that you already know some things. Like, for instance, I'm a project manager by day and in a past life, mommy by night. Those skills that I use to get my kids situated are also project management skill sets. So when I encountered a moment on my job where I needed to start figuring out how to gather people a little bit more, I had to pull a skill from a different area because we often think that we have not yet developed the skills that we need to get us through our experiences. But you have an ability. And if you know these three basic elements from the HAD framework, you'll know which one to pull up for what environment that you find yourself in. So the first thing that I talked about was the heart-centered soul, that individual that's often the calm in the storm. You are the person that everybody typically goes to because you have a way of making them feel like they are seen. In the world that we live in this day and age, a lot of people struggle with feeling like they are seen. And because they don't feel seen, that's why in a lot of workplaces, you have what has been deemed the silent retirees, those people that are no longer doing the work. They sort of already stopped working. They haven't yet left a job, but they've already gone silent on their tasks, silent in their thoughts, silent in their actions. And if you're an individual that may have been one of those silent persons that decided, I'm just not doing this anymore, because you didn't feel seen. It will be a heart centered person that will draw out the skill inside of you that you already possess. And if you're doing this from a personal perspective, when our teenagers, having raised two sons alone, when I was walking through the initial teenage years, every other word is one syllable if you can get the words out. How do you draw that information out? How do you still help them be seen? So the skill set that you bring in one area can be easily navigated in another. And when I learned how to navigate my world by pulling on the different strengths that I needed, that inner element about my being helped me move into a better direction. So whether your ability is to connect with others like the heart-centered soul, or the second thing that I shared, being an action-oriented individual, you're typically the go-getter. On your job, you are usually the team leader, the person that everybody goes to because you have this natural way of just rallying the troops. On your personal environment, you're that friend that if somebody needs something done, you'll be the first one to do it. That action oriented element about your being makes you decisive. That action oriented element about your being is your inner gifts, skills, and talents that you just walk into the room. Leadership has arrived. As a result of that skill set, knowing how to apply it in the different areas of your life will help you overcome whatever the challenges are. So if you find yourself in a position where you're not quite sure what to do because a chaotic moment has arisen and it seems like it's going to take you out, you had everything you needed from the very beginning. Now, that third part, the D, I call that the developer. Now, the developer are those natural, logical, analytical individuals like myself. Yeah, the nerd in us has a tendency to want structure, order. We are the individuals that if there isn't a process in place, we can quickly come up with one. If there's some structure or order that an organization needs, you may be in that position, either in a technical position where you are putting together some elements of structure, or in the IT field because you have that logical element that you can pull through and gain insight from. So professionally, you're pulling on those skills, but personally, you may not be pulling out the skill set that's most supportive. So you can use that natural, logical, analytical element, because here's the thing that often happens to us. When we walk through emotional chaos, emotions are illogical. So the thing that you typically do on your 9 to 5, when you go to your 5 to 9 at home, you don't often pull out the technical process oriented elements that your developer being already brings to the table. So you're missing out on how to get the strategy that you need to get into a better position. So, what does resetting your life really look like? When you have to reset again, as I have done often, you got to take a step back, gain some clarity, redefine an approach that you can use for this new challenge. And that approach may mean pulling up what you may do on a professional level and apply it to your personal environment. So here's an example of marrying the three elements that I've shared. As a mama bear, when I was going through the chaos of my divorce, trying to figure out how to keep my home stable, I had to let my heart centered soul tap into the heart of my babies while we navigated that hurdle together. I had to do my action oriented element because on my job, I had no problem doing the action that was needed, pulling up those skill sets. I had to transfer it to a personal environment so that this was a timetable. I use, if you've seen some of my past episodes, a simple little timer. It's a little clock that you have to turn around. And I use that as a way of getting me on point. I used it as a tool to help my sons recognize when the time gets here, then that means we have moved into another activity. That way, they were getting better with a schedule because I lost my schedule. My emotional warfare did not have to constantly show up and try to figure out in the midst of everything how to get back on track. The timer snapped me out of some moments that I needed to be snapped out of and reset me into a new direction. That allowed me to uncover a strength that I already had. And you already had the things and the tools inside of your being that you can use as well. You're just applying them in a different area of your life. But I want to encourage you today. Apply them in this arena, right here, right now, today, to best support you. Hello, thank you for being here. Glad that you could show up as well. So leave your comments as I'm going through, and if any of this is resonating with you, then like, comment, and share it with others because this is intended to be an extended conversation from the podcast that took place this morning. So I'm only going to do touch points on it, but go back, listen to the full episode, and I'll put the link for those of you that are on LinkedIn so that you can get the opportunity to see the episode and we can extend the rest of the conversation there. Now, here's something else that I'm wondering. If you're thinking, what if I feel like I've been stuck for too long and I just cannot reset? There are moments we have a tendency to underutilize the thoughts that we have. The first thing I want you to do is what I often use as a tool for my clients. Rest. Rest is an acronym to help you get an idea of the different areas of your life that you can start resetting. So when you pause, the R in rest is about relationships. Pause. Take a look at the relationships that you have. Reflect on what does it look like? What's holding you back? Who do you need to support you on the journey? Because lots of times when we're walking through our storms, we try to walk it by ourselves. You do not have to walk through every storm alone. And I get that there are lots of times you don't really know what to say or what to have people do. And you may be in a position where you're like, I'm not sure I even want them present. Find out the relationships that are best able to support you and be present. Because when you choose to rest in it, it gives you the chance to go through a step by step element of resetting. So the E in rest is the dealing with your emotions. When you are in the middle of warfare, your emotions can be everywhere. When you pause and reflect, reassess what skill sets you bring, write down what it is you're experiencing, because there are some things that you just have to get out of your being. What I often share with my clients when I'm asking them to reset emotionally, write it out on a loose leaf sheet of paper. Do not put this in a binder, on a journal. Don't put it any of those places. Because if you do that, then you could possibly put yourself in a position where you're writing something you don't want the world to see. So put it on a loose leaf sheet of paper. That will give you the opportunity to burn it, because you're going to need to just burn this as you go through the element of trying to get things together. When you burn that, you have sort of a cathartic moment of burning away the chaos, burning away the mess, burning away what is no longer supporting you. And when you realize that that went up in smoke, it does a calming to your soul, which leads us to the S. There are moments that some of us, like me, need to have a spiritual resetting. When you let Jesus join you on the journey, he'll give you insight that you never knew that you needed, clarity about how to truly get a strategy that will support you in that moment. Because a lot of the things that I teach here and show, I got in the midst of my chaotic moments when Jesus found me on a bathroom floor of my two-bedroom apartment. He reset me, gave me a thought and a vision that helped me get to the last part of rest. T, tangible. There are tangible things that you have that you got to work through in your environment. And I didn't know how to do that anymore. So I got the insight that I need spiritually, because emotionally I began to get settled. And relationally, I began to connect the people in my world that I needed, that were willing and able to support me on the journey. So when you find yourself in a position where you feel like you're stuck, you're not sure how to reset, rest. That pause That pause will give you the chance to walk through each of those elements. And here's one last thing I want to leave you with. How can this really help you if you need to reset yourself on your career? Being a heart-centered, action-oriented developer, it allows you to show up as your most authentic self, because there are parts of who you are that you don't always show in other arenas. And some spaces and places will probably make you feel like you can't. But if you start showing up in a more authentic manner, you can bring awareness to those around you about what your needs are, build stronger relationships in the process, which will help you make better decisions that align with your values, your strengths, and your abilities. So when I decided that the parts of Tanya that worked at home trying to get myself reset in the chaos, I had to start applying some of those pieces and being a little more heart centered on my job. I had an environment that made me believe that I could not just really be friends because I did not know how to fully connect. But the heart centered part of me is the kind of hue that I often share. There are different levels of how much we show. And the people on my job gave me the thought I could only show just a teeny weeny bit of my heart centered soul. When I'm that person that wants to check on you and just stop by on occasion and say, hi, how are you doing today? How's the family? How are things with you? But I didn't do a lot of the small talk because I did not feel that that was professional. But that right there was a part of my heart-centered element. And when I decided to start showing up in the full authentic element of my being and allow that value of connecting my heart to yours, my coworkers began to get a little more aligned with my spirit, how I felt. And when we got onto assignments that started pushing us, that's when the action oriented part had to show up. When I'm pushing the goals, when I'm pushing the deadline, when I want to make certain that we meet whatever that requirement was that was asked of us. When we know that we are running as a team, oh, they will go with you further because our hearts got connected with those in between small talk moments. And then the developer in me, well, I'm naturally built for strategy. So I had a plan in place to help us reach the goal that we were headed, give them clear alignment about the scope of work so that we can move in alignment with what the metrics were and complete our task. So had as a framework will support you on the journey so that you can allow your personal and your professional to show up and give you the strength that you need so that you can easily do this thing called reset. Reset yourself personally so that you won't continue to have the relational breakdowns in your personal world because they do show up in your professional world. And then you can grow your career if that's your desire. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else I've shared, here's what I want you to remember. You had everything you needed from the very beginning. Go back, listen to this morning's episode, get a little more insight on each of the touch points. And then, if you want to go a little bit further, feel free to go to my website, tanyaehood.com. There you can click under the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. And I look forward to having the rest of this conversation. So comment below so that we can extend the discussion. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.